Happy Rom-Com Month, everybody. We are doing 28 Days of Love, and today is day 27. I am your host, Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say carpe diem. And that comes from this strange thing that happened to me in college, actually, where I left an actual donut on a table, but that became an object lesson for me and what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. So the reason I'm saying this is that from time to time, I'll issue myself a Take the Donut challenge. If there's something that I want to do, I'll make it official. I'll use it to hold myself accountable. But this time, I'm actually opening up the challenge to anybody who wants to join. So here we are. We're doing 28 Days of Love, 28 Days of Rom-Com movies. Today's day 27, like I said, and we're going to talk about the cutting edge today, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to share 10 things I love about this movie, but I'm not doing this alone. I'm here with Emily Gipson, who's a co-founder of the ATX TV Festival, to talk about the cutting edge. Welcome, Emily.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I am so glad to talk with you about I'm just delighted to be speaking about the cutting edge, to be talking to you. This is great. Um, First of all, give us a little bit more information about your background and your journey with this film.
Yes, well, it's funny because my world is very much, as you said, TV at this point in time. But the cutting edge, I mean, obviously growing up, loved all sorts of movies. And this was one of those movies that my sister and I watched over and over and over again. I mean, just the visions of going to either Blockbuster or we had a Hastings. I don't know if you know what a Hastings is, but like a books, movies, music type place where you could rent movies and going and like renting this movie constantly. And which is such a fun thought to have when you would go and like peruse the aisles and like always come back to your favorite. So my sister, I can't tell you the first time that I watched it. That must have been around when it came out. May have even gone to the theater. I wish I could remember, but it's just always been ingrained in my childhood. Um, Loved it and everything about it so much. And then the funny journey of the movie to linking it to TV, to link it to TV is when Moira Kelly was cast on One Tree Hill. And when One Tree Hill came out, that was the reason that I wanted to watch One Tree Hill. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Moira Kelly. That's Kate from The Cutting Edge. I must watch this show. And like how much I loved it and hearing the cast talk about how much they loved her and how starstruck they were by her on the show. And then what I did not realize is that this movie was written by Tony Gilroy, who I mean, has obviously done tons of movies, but is known right now for in the TV world for Andor. And I was like, what a journey. Had no idea how that full circle was going to happen. But yes, back to my relationship with this movie really started just my sister and I watching it all throughout our childhood, just on repeat.
We are kindred spirits because I have to say, so going into curating the list for rom-com month, as an adult, now I would say my favorite rom-com is Love Rosie. But for my whole life up until I saw Love Rosie, The Cutting Edge was it. And I would say if there were somehow like a cosmic tally of all the times I've seen every movie I've ever seen, The Cutting Edge is a definitive number one. I mean, there were days when I was a kid when I watched it just like I was doing other things and just watched it like two, three times on repeat in a day. So like it just is uh has such a special place in my heart. So this is going to be fun because we're two people who saw this movie when we were younger and now we are older and like what does it reveal to you at
Well,
different
so
times?
my first question to you on this is you've seen it so many times. Was there a break, or have you watched it constantly throughout the past 30 years? I guess it came out in 92. And I don't know when you saw it for the first time, but have you watched it constantly, or was there a break where you hadn't seen it in a while?
And this has been the break, I would say.
Okay.
There's been a minute, like it's been a few years since I've seen it, but I know it so well that I could probably still recite it to you, like when I watched it for this. So there has been a break, but it'll get to one of my points because I sort of lived in this world for a little while. So in some ways, it was more my reality than it was before.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but I'm kind of excited to talk about that because that'll hit one of my top 10. So that brings me to how we'll talk about this today. We're going to do a top 10 list. This isn't necessarily like a scene by scene deep dive, but what it is Emily and I are going to share 10 things we love about this movie. Maybe the conversation goes where it goes. And so I'll take the even numbers. Emily will take the odd numbers. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about The Cutting Edge, which came out in 1992. It was directed by Paul Michael Glaser. It was written, like you said, by Tony Gilroy, of course, starring Moira Kelly as Kate Mosley, D.B. Sweeney as Doug Dorsey, Roy Dotrice as Anton Pamchenko, and Terry O'Quinn as Jack Mosley. There are certainly other characters here, but I would say those are like maybe the four biggest names that you'll get in the movie. Um, and I'm going to start off here with number 10 to get us going with the top 10 list. Our list can be small details, big details or themes, anything in between. I'm going to start off with a very, very small detail, almost not audible. Doug goes back home to finally reveal what he's been doing all this time, where they think he's been in the Merchant Marine. And he says, I've been doing a little figure skating. And his brother's like, you've been doing what? And some guy in the back, some old man says, finger painting? This moment has brought me so much glee.
Oh my gosh, yes.
This man has like a two, I guess, what is that, two words, finger painting? One word, I don't know. That's his contribution to the movie. And boy, if it's not on my top five list, I don't know what to tell you.
That is amazing. And I feel like this movie is full of those tiny moments that I kind of remembered from childhood, but not fully. And as he walks in the bar, I remember everyone's reaction and the fact that, like, this is like embarrassing that he's been figure skating and all of these things. But I absolutely laughed out loud when that line happened, watching it a few days ago.
Oh
It's
man, I just, I don't even, I assume that was all scripted and they, like this guy knew he was the finger painting man. And I just, and it's, and the context of it too, because it's like, maybe that would be more acceptable to this group than his actual answer. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's, maybe a wider commentary, but it's like this delightful moment of mishearing.
it
Um,
That is a good point. The thought that, like, it couldn't be figure skating. Like, that's not going to be the first thing in someone's head. So if you're misunderstanding it and you're trying to put the words together, it absolutely figure skating is not even a question on the table. So of course finger painting is a much more viable option. That's funny. I
that's
do
what he's been doing all this
love it.
time.
Love it.
And he just couldn't pick up the phone, because his
Oh yeah.
hands were all covered in paint. Oh my gosh. So good. I know it's like the tiniest detail, but that's where we're starting from number 10. Where did you want to go with number 9?
Okay, well, I'm going to go the opposite. And I'm going to go very broad in the fact of, and I think some of these things on my top on my list are very much things that are seen through the viewpoint of an adult 30 years later in a way that as a child, we saw a lot of rom-coms, obviously, but one had no romance experience by the time when I saw this the first time around. And two, just like filmmaking has gone in so many different directions in the past 30 years and storytelling and the ups and downs of it, and a lot of movies don't age well for various reasons. I don't believe this is one of them. I believe this movie aged so well. But one of the things that I loved so much in this viewing was the fact of something I didn't pick up on as a kid, but that it really takes place over 2 years from the time they meet to the time of the end, the big, moment at the end, that it's about 2 years. And even though it doesn't feel like it in a good way, it's not like we're going through all the seasons and we're going through all of the like monotony of just like the training over and over, but we see these moments throughout, that time of them starting to connect and going from uh I want to ruin my next point, but going from being adversaries to, falling in love, and that it really is a nice change from this like insta love that we see so often, or these, whirlwind romances where they're only together for 2 weeks or even a summer. And the fact that they have really spent all this time together and really gotten to know each other. And I just love that the movie has that breath in it and that it's an actual like relationship that is formed between these two people, and you don't have to think about, well, what's going to happen to them now, because so many times in rom-coms you have like they get together, they barely know each other, but they've got this deep connection, and then you're like, yeah, well, what happens after that? What happens after the movie's over? Where this, it's like, no, they know each other's pitfalls. They know what they love about each other. They know what they hate about each other. And it makes you feel like they've got a real chance after this to stay together. And I just loved that and didn't know that from the beginning.
Yeah. And actually, I think that's one of the reasons why a movie like this or a movie like Love Rosie are so at the top of my list, because I, as a person, am not somebody who deeply connects to the like love at first sight idea. I know there are people who have experienced this in real life, and I get that and I honor that. But for me, it's more like, oh, we've been doing this same activity every Wednesday for the last 5 years. Hey, do you think, like
Yeah.
it's like that's more where I come from with this. So for me, it is much more relatable that these two that there has been all this time that's gone on, that they've been in such close proximity, that they've been working on shared goals together. Um, like there are a lot of reasons why this has built the way that it has. And technically, the film, so like we go Olympics to Olympics, right? I think 88 to 92, but the story of them knowing
Yes.
each other is that concentrated time period, like you said, and 2 years, especially like, there have been studies where like just having eye contact with somebody for a long period of time can sort of change how you feel about them, even if it's minutes, and they're really working closely together. So this dynamic makes a lot of sense. And they've kind of worked through all of they know where each other's buttons are, and they know they don't want to push them anymore. So it's
Yes.
like you can really get on board with this because of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a good point. Well, to your point about like seeing things as an adult a little differently, that brings me to number 8. So before I started doing what I do, before I was doing keynotes and all that, the early part of my career, I actually worked in major international sport events like Olympic Winter Games and Rugby World Cups. And so I was a gymnast up until the end of college. And for me, the Olympics was the best thing on the planet. So, like, a movie about the Olympics is going to be on that level. And then to see, like all of this stuff fueled me in real life, where after I graduated from college, I went, and my first real big job was working in Torino for the 2006 Olympic Winter Games. And I worked in Vancouver at the 2010 Olympic Winter Games. And I was like at the figure skating arenas for these things sometimes. And so for me, this I've sort of like gotten to the other side of the Olympic obsession in my life. There will always be a love in my heart for it, but anything that's connected to that world is really important to me. And so there's a specific person I want to shout out once again, an actor who's got like one line in this film. The look on the face of the guy from the organizing committee or possibly broadcast who is in charge of keeping things on schedule when he says, "You may take the ice." And Doug says to Kate, "I'm saying I love you, and I'm saying it out loud." And the look on that man's face. And from that point, you then see all the people from broadcast and all the people who are managing the event, all the people from sport. I know who these people would be in real life, who are like, you have got to get on the ice. And they don't have lines, but they're doing it with their eyes. Like, I know these people. I don't know these actors, but I've seen these people in real life, and I know what it looks like when you have, they didn't prepare for this in a tabletop scenario when they thought about all the different things that could go wrong on the day. And this for them is a problem. For us, it's the best. We've been waiting the whole movie for this moment. But for
Yes.
these people, all they need to do is get Kate and Doug on the ice to start their program like 2 minutes ago. Uh,
I love that and definitely agree in that moment watching them try to get them on the ice, but also have this like respect for I understand something big is happening between the two of you and I want to let you have it and not interrupt it, but like I need you to do this thing. And as someone who runs an event where I'm like, my job is to make sure people are on stage and that we are running on time for things. And whenever there's any delay, you're like, no, no, you don't understand. Everything crumbles when this happens. And this is the Olympics broadcast. So, high stakes.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I always liked those people, but now I have a different kind of appreciation.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for you, like with the no, what you're noticing as an adult for your number
Oh,
nine.
yeah.
That's for me number eight. But where did you want to go for number seven?
Okay. Number seven, still kind of broad, but also something that I just didn't know was a thing as a child, which were tropes that you have in really any type of storytelling, but especially in romantic storytellings and rom-coms. And the fact that this is an enemies to lovers uh trope is just one of my favorites. I didn't realize maybe this is really what instilled because now, even now, things that I watch, I love an enemies to lovers storytelling. Like, love it. I love when there's good banter, when there's good discourse, when there's like reasons that they shouldn't like each other. And this is maybe the reason from this movie that I like so deeply love that. And so, because I think what is great in a comedy, especially, is the banter between the two of them. And the way, as you're saying, like they push each other's buttons, they know how, they really get under each other's skin. And I think it's so much fun to watch. Um, and I also feel like watching it as an adult, there are jokes that I definitely didn't get as a child. There's a whole joke about, an ongoing joke about foreplay and like didn't, had no idea. Um,
That
and I
Hale of all people clocks.
oh my God.
Aw, to be Hale in this situation.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I know. And I love that and definitely didn't understand that and really appreciated those jokes in a different way. But just yeah, that like tension between them and that it really starts out because I feel like sometimes that enemies to lovers can start out as like there is an attraction, but they're like resisting it. Whereas this it doesn't there's not an initial attraction like they once they start they want this for different reasons and they're forced together for different reasons but it like slowly grows into something and I just really love watching them and love watching the moments where you like start to see it shift between them which is a lot in the training too is like they're becoming in sync with each other but I just love it deeply.
You're right. I think it's interesting because this isn't their enemies, but are secretly attracted to each other. It's like they're just here to do their sports. And if not for each other, they wouldn't be able to. So there's like a very, and that's very loaded because probably their identities are very tied into the thing they've been doing. So they're actually a device for each other. They're a vehicle for each other to be able to do the thing they do, whether they like it or not, and they don't. And so like I love all the barbs we get. If the closer you watch this movie, the more you pick up on all those little lines that they say to each other. He's from Minnesota, south of Neanderthal, like all that good stuff.
So many good lines.
It's just all throughout the movie in the beginning. So yeah, it's fun to look at that. And again, it feels so much more earned when they develop a respect for each other. And when you start to see those, this time watching it, I was really trying to track, like, when do I really start seeing them look at each other in a different way? Um, and you can see little hints of it along the way. But there was a New Year's party that I feel like there were some
Yeah.
very clear moments.
The New Year's party is definitely one where they come together and there's like sparklers and that scene
Or
where they're
even looking at each other when they're having conversations with other
yes.
people and they're sort of like, oh, do I like
Yeah.
the fact that you're having this conversation with that person or those people?
Well, and it feels like the moment that they really become like teammates and things start to change is the moment where um Kate's on the ice by herself and the old coach comes and they're having a moment and she's basically like, he's the best thing you're ever going to see. He's the best, person I've ever skated with. And the guy walks off and then Doug's been watching and comes out, and they still have a moment of like, don't ruin this for me. You better show up and do it. But it's like at that moment is when they both come together as something to prove. It feels like before that, they were both trying to prove things individually. And at that moment, it's like, oh, we're a team and we have to do this together. And that's when, to me, it like really starts to click between the two of them. And they see each other, start to see each other as allies. And I like, we've got to do this together, or we're going to fail.
I love that point. And interestingly about that particular scene, this is an area where my brain understood that scene differently from the first time I saw it when I was really little. Not to being an adult, but when I was really young and I first saw this movie, and he then says, "Do me a favor, take off the rock while we work. It's cutting the hell out of my hand." I, she's wearing this really big brooch.
Oh,
And I thought I remember thinking like, okay, like, like I
that's
guess she could
funny.
take the brooch off. And it wasn't, it's not like it took me all this time, but it took a few, like as a young kid, it took me a minute to be like, oh, it's her ring. Oh.
That's funny. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
That's funny. I wonder when I realized. I don't know. I don't know when I realized what he meant by that.
yeah, it took a minute for me. And it's sometimes you don't clock those things, like you just understand something differently. But I remember like it shifted for me when I was like, I get it. It's not her
Yeah.
brooch. It's the engagement ring. Um, okay. So that's number 7. Number 6. Okay. So they do this debrief in Albertville after the Olympic short program that Kate basically self-sabotaged during. Um, and, they have this whole very honest conversation, and there's this fight happening between the men in the room, and then Kate stands up and she gives her speech. And I just had to mention this because she looks so gorgeous to me in this scene. She will always look gorgeous to me in this scene. I see this with like Moira Kelly colored glasses. I don't know. Like this is she's got this, like, for me it's this beautiful sweater, this slightly messy hair, and the lighting on her. There's
Mhm.
like this hazy lighting in this I don't know house they rented, I guess, in
Yep.
Albertville. And she's just a little sad. And it's not that I think she's so beautiful because she's sad, but there's just like a very real moment that she's having here where she's let down her guard completely. She's just being very honest. She doesn't want people to fight. She doesn't want the contentious atmosphere anymore. That's done for her. And I don't know, she's just sort of hit a new phase of her life here at this table. And it's just, I don't know. She just like, that's the movie for me somehow. And yeah, I don't know however they shot this, however they lit this, it looks like natural light, but it probably wasn't. Um, wow.
An excellent DP. Whoever the DP is, an excellent cinematographer.
So good. So yeah,
I
that's
think
mine.
honestly that, and I'm going to change my order up here because I feel like that is a good tie-in to my next one.
Hmm.
Um, so this is number 5.
5.
Okay. Is something for me was Kate's character journey, which I don't think that I really paid attention to or cared about as a child. As a child, I was much more like the romance, the romance. Let me get to the kiss. Like, I want to watch these two people fall in love and have this tension. But watching it as an adult, I was like, and it was when that scene hits, it's like, oh, this is her journey that she has been on. And Doug has been on his own journey, and obviously them together. And I feel like you don't get that in a lot of rom-coms. Like I feel like so many rom-coms are really just about the two characters coming together and how the two characters can come together. And sometimes they sacrifice something, or I know it's usually like a big opportunity, which is great because neither one of them have to sacrifice anything in this. It really is about them coming to terms with who they are and where in their lives. And she starts out as this, I don't want to call her a terrible person, but she's like not enjoyable and not delightful to be around. And no one, she's going through these different partners. And for her, to go through this and like see herself how they are seeing her and really take that moment to confess and apologize and come to terms with who she is, and in that really be decide like I don't want to be this person anymore, to the point that after that she's like I'm retiring after this skate because this isn't, I can now see myself clearly and have this self-awareness and like I don't want to be this person and I know how you all are looking at me, and she takes on that ownness of herself as opposed to blaming other people and decides that she wants to change and be different. And I just didn't see that at all as a kid and really loved watching that as part of this their story and how they even come together, and they both have to go on their journeys in order to be together after the movie ends. Like they've had to change a little bit, which, yeah, I feel like most movies, they're trying to change their circumstance, not necessarily who they are, but these people have evolved into better versions of themselves. And
Yeah,
that's what
and
it,
it's not like they were trying to change each other. They sort of accepted the versions of themselves that they were, and they wanted to change along, like they wanted to make these shifts along the way to meet each other in the middle. You had mentioned earlier the enemies to friends of it all, and in a way, that's both the dynamic between Kate and Doug. It's also kind of the dynamic for Kate with herself.
yes. Yeah,
You
very much.
know, she's just so fighting herself. She self-sabotages every Olympics. It's like she does things to herself that she would do to her worst enemy, or that her worst enemy would do to her. So it's like both an internal struggle and in the relationship. It's amazing.
Yes, yes. And those moments where you can see, like, let's just have fun out there. Like, she doesn't let herself do that very often. And she just pushes herself to the point that she is injuring and like torturing herself. But then when she just like relaxes and lets it be, there's something that she really enjoys in this.
Hmm. Well, okay, so this will bring me. Well, I guess we sort of stay on Kate a little bit here, but it's really both of them. For number four, I wanted to bring up Kate and Doug play hockey, and we get this really fun
Yeah.
Diddly Daddy song by Chris Isaac. That needle drop just is like, I'm just like ready to watch the screen again. And to see Moira Kelly getting increasingly angry,
Yes.
just like you make me ill. Um, like the
I love
the
it.
the roars that she makes.
Yep, the banter of the two of them knocking heads. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, I love everything about that scene. I think also part of the reason why I like that scene is when I think about Moira Kelly in particular, she's just got such a poise, and like I think of the word regal when I think of her. I don't know, she has a presence about her, and then to see her roar, you know,
Yes.
like is so not expected. And like just such a great way to disrupt how I look at her. And then, obviously Doug can win this. Like, but, you know, but is he really winning? It's just like this really fun moment of competitive play, but is it play, or is it foreplay, or is it like, what is this? Um, so yeah, I love this scene.
It's part of, and it's is that enemies to lovers, like it's part of how he taunts her. He's like, she's getting, and I love that scene too, because she's getting so mad and like letting this aggression out. And he's just like having the best time. He's enjoying it. He's having the best time. He also loves seeing this come out of her. It's like he's playing out because he enjoys it. And then for him to then be injured in the scene and how he plays that injury, like when he's coming out of the, emergency room or whatnot and has his head bandaged up. It's just like, I love that part about his character that he's like, he's been injured. He's a hockey player. This is definitely not the worst injury he's ever had. And he just like finds it fun and loves it. And the fact that then there's a callback at the end where when she's telling him that she's retiring, but that he'll be able to get a new partner. And she says, but no one with my slapstick. And you're like,
Mm.
the
Yep.
fact that it then like is like a joke at the end, I love that callback.
Yeah. And Well, the other thing I like about that scene, we actually get a really good balance because I think in that scene, it's Kate realizing, oh, like what Doug did was kind of hard. Like she gets an appreciation for ice hockey. We also see something like that from him, but she's not privy to it because he says in a conversation with his brother, well, like figure skating is like the hardest, it's way harder than hockey. Um, and so he's got a healthy respect for this activity now, for Kate's world that he's in now. So we see that both of these characters have that moment, but we actually see it through action in this scene. So yeah, Diddly Daddy, Chris Isaac, they played
Love,
hockey.
love.
But okay, so what do you have for number three?
Okay, so number three, I'm going with what I believe is the most iconic scene. Well, my number one, maybe the most iconic scene. One of the most iconic scenes, definitely the thing that I think everyone remembers. And if you say the cutting edge, this is what they say back to you, and that's the toe pick scene. Um,
Topic.
it's just, and it is her taunting of him. Like, talk about the hockey being him taunting of her, but it is like him learning to figure skate, him not knowing at all how this works, and just that whole training montage of him constantly falling and constantly sliding and constantly like messing up, and her just saying toe pick in different tones over and over. She like gracefully and casually skates around him. It is. It's so funny, and it makes you wonder when Tony Gilroy wrote it, when they shot it, when they filmed it, like, did they know that that was going to be the scene and the moment that everyone took away from that movie as like the line that you say and the reference that you have? I told a handful of people that I was watching this movie this weekend for this podcast, and all of them said, "To pick." Like it was just like what you say and what you do, and I love it so much because very few movies have like that type of line and tangible scene that becomes so like ingrained in whatever it is.
And when people reference it, I don't think it's with I don't think it's to mock it because sometimes that
Oh,
happens with movies where like the scene everybody talks about is like a guilty pleasure, sort of like a no, it's like this, oh, it's Topic, like it's this
yes.
excitement because we all know this thing and just like this sideways angle and then she's just skating away.
But I think it's too like in retrospect, even thinking now, like as women growing up and like especially in a movie about a sport, the fact that like he comes in as like, I'm so good at everything. I'm this hockey player. Like, I've got this. And the fact that she is so much better than him and she is so good. And he's looking really dumb and keeps making all these mistakes. And she's like, just skates on by. I'm like, how empowering for a young girl to be able to watch and be like, she's the one controlling this scene in a way that I definitely didn't realize as a kid.
Yeah, and it's like she's just gonna do this until she stops wanting to do this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like she needs to get this out of her system. At some point, he will have earned her respect or like whatever that is or they'll be getting closer to something and he hasn't left yet and now she just needs to get more serious about it like whatever that transition is and then we kind of see because at one point they actually do get through a full routine and practice and like the men all celebrate and she's like, all right, you stuck it out, man, like what can I say?
Yes, 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 yes.
Oh gosh, toe pick, yeah. Absolutely, I think like the most known scene in this movie by a country mile. So this will bring me to number two on the list. I'm just gonna say the final skate. I mean, what a climax of the movie. We get to see not only like some of the it's shot differently because it's some of the technical elements that we're seeing but also it's very like sensual as much as you can make it in how it's shot and then we get to see like the triumph um and and it just feels, especially coming off of a short program where they were meant to feel very cold and disconnected emotionally from each other. And this really does feel different. And it was shot differently. And the music is awesome. And little Melissa dancing in her basement. Like, I never knew whether to watch the screen or dance to this music. And actually, for that matter, I love the songs they pick because the other song, it's not the biggest moment in the movie, but there's a song from an earlier event. They do one of their performances to Yellow's The Race. And I don't know if that's a super well-known song, but it is if you've seen this movie because you would recognize like the race car sound
Mhm.
when they start the
Yes, yes,
performance.
yes.
And in 95, a gymnast, an American gymnast called J.C. Phelps, created a floor routine to this music. So it sort of cemented the cutting edge for the entire gymnastics world. And she actually performed that routine at the 96 Olympics. So it like added to the legacy of the song. Um, I don't necessarily know as much about the legacy of the song for the final skate, but that was like the more iconically shot one.
Yeah. Yep. I love how they shoot all of the skating. Like it's definitely, and they do it, I agree, different when it's the training montages versus the performances, and all the performances are different. And it adds to like the intensity of the movie, like adding the stakes. It
It
really,
does. When you say that, it makes me think there's I don't know what the move is. It like a death spiral? There's a moment they have a camera angle that it looks like it's like on Doug's, maybe like a GoPro on his head or like on his chest, and he's looking down and he's spinning her in a circle, and you can actually just watch her spinning from his angle. They did some really creative shots because, you have to mix it up in a movie where you're featuring the same sport the whole time. You have to keep it interesting, and I think they
I
managed to
think they
find some
totally did.
ways.
Yes.
Yeah,
And how they shoot their faces and their looks and the music. I think you're right. Like to be on the ice for so much of the movie and really for the majority of the movie, just to be the two of them, you have to keep it interesting with the shots and the music. And they absolutely do.
hmm. Okay, so that's number two. What's number one on our list? What do we
You
love the
know
most?
what? A great lead into number one, which is I don't know if we classify it as the Pamchenko move or the scene, because there's the training scene and then obviously how it comes together at the end. But this is the undoable move, if you will, in ice skating, which I was doing some Googling earlier, and I think like it's impossible to do. Like I think that it's like not something that ice skaters can do in a way that I makes me love this even more. But this, move that was created for them where he basically takes her legs and spins her around, throws her up in the air, and then gracefully kind of catches her kind of as they just like skate together into his arms. And it's like obviously they have the whole training scene where she just gets thrown on the ground over and over and over and over again, which I think is funny that they never really I think they could have leaned into her injuries a little bit more on that, but it's brutal to watch. It's brutal to watch her hitting the ice over and over. And then to all the lead in for all the scenes we already talked about, for them to have the moment on the sideline before going onto the ice where he confesses he loves her and then she starts crying and then they go onto the ice and she's like, it's in, we're doing it. And he's like, I can't remember, I think he says why. I can't remember what he says at the first when they skate out there, but she's like, I'm in the mood to kick little ass. And they both smile and then talk about, then they have fun. That's when you see them have fun on the ice and then to do the move and nail the move. And the thing I love so much about this movie is the fact that like you don't see them win. We assume that they won, but you don't see them win. You don't see them get the goal, the thing that they've been striving for this whole movie. It is about them doing this move together, nailing it, and then saying I love you, and you finally get the kiss. Um, and the thing that I didn't realize because I hadn't watched it in so long is how similar this moment is to the end of Dirty Dancing. And how iconic that final dance move in Dirty Dancing, they've already declared their love for each other. It's a little bit different, but like this thing that is at the center of what they're doing, both couples, that they've tried so hard and couldn't make work. And then as soon as they're like, I love you, I'm here with you, they come together and like do the impossible. And I just love it so much.
Ah, I've just been like tearing up over here. I love the Pamchenko scene. I love everything about it. I love that it's like the representation of like taking a chance, both in their sport and in their relationship with each other. The music of the practice scene sequence is like so dramatic and dark. Um, it makes me think because like in gymnastics there were lots of things that you could do from a safety standpoint to make learning a new skill safer. And I don't know what those things would have been for figure skating, but surely this isn't it,
Yes,
like,
yes,
like put
yes, definitely not.
get some 12-inch mats from the gymnastics world, put them around like all around you on the ice or something. I don't know.
Yes,
But yeah, it's so, and the thing is like there's this real it's punishing for both of them, but in a very different way for her. Like, and I think he has a healthy understanding of that. Like, is
yes.
like, like you see him as the sequence goes on, he's like sort of checking on her, um, which I think is, because he kind of coaxed her into this to begin with, and she was resisted it, and they're both doing this together. But like, there's a very there are repercussions for her that he's not experiencing. And so I think, yeah. And the other thing too, because I haven't really talked about Roy Dotrice, and I just wanted to say, like, the other thing that I know him from, if that's how you say his last name, is fairy tale theater.
I didn't
From
know
my
this.
childhood, there was this whole series of longer than a typical TV show episode, but shorter than a feature movie. And Shelley Duvall hosted like every fairy tale you can name. Uh, they did an episode about it with actors that you know now, like Susan Sarandon was Beauty in Beauty and the Beast, and like people like all of these people. And Roy Dotrice he was a father in my favorite one called The Dancing Princesses, and so I know him from that and from this, and he plays two very different
Oh my
characters,
God.
but it's delightful. And so to see him get like his moment in this Pamchenko sequence where this is named after him and it's his brainchild, yeah.
Love that.
It shows you like what an innovator he is. Like he's a really good coach. And it's
Yes.
one of those things that's sort of quietly under the surface with this. Like he's just been working on these drawings for all these years. He's just
Yes.
going to lay them out and they can see the genius.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love all of that. And I love when you see people in very different things and you're like, two iconic things in my mind and very different characters.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's our list. That's our 10. So everybody who's watching this, what are your favorite things about this movie? It might be that we just get a whole bunch of people commenting the word toe pick, or it could be that you share other things that you enjoy about this film. But we would like to hear from you so that we can understand what people love about the movie The Cutting Edge. And before we close this out, Emily, is there anything you want to plug? Anything that you want to share that you have coming up or that we should be aware of?
Well, yes, well, if you love movies, then hopefully that means you love television as well. Moira Kelly, also TV star. So we have the annual ATX TV Festival coming up this summer here in where I am in Austin, Texas, May 29th through June 1st. We call it TV Camp for Grown-ups, like a film festival, but all TV, where we celebrate past, current, and future of TV with screenings and reunions and panels and premieres and all of that. So it's at atxfestival.com. Badges are on sale now, and we're announcing programming all the time leading up for the next few months.
And it's such a fun event. I got a chance to attend last year, see TV on the big screen. Amazing. So definitely check out the ATX TV Festival. And if you like Rom-Com Month, well, we've still got one more day. So, and that may be disappointing, only one more day, but there's two movies for it because I'm doing a double feature. So, day 28, we're watching The Holiday from 2006 with Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Jack Black, Eli Wallach. I have a guest for that one as well, Katie Matoyer, who's the owner of Sugar Dane Cookies, an award-winning cookie decorator from the US. And what better, holiday cookies, what better way to celebrate the holiday? Also, this year is not a leap year, but some years are. So we're making this a double feature with the movie Leap Year from 2010. This is an Amy Adams, Matthew Good, Adam Scott movie. Very likely will be a guest for that one as well that you'll find out when we get there. So that is what's coming up tomorrow. I hope you'll all join me for those movies as well. And thank you, Emily, for joining me today.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And what a great reason to rewatch The Cutting Edge and all the movies you're doing. Like, I am fully indulging in Rom-Com Month.
Yes, this month has been so fun. What a blast. And to everybody who's watching, happy Rom-Com month. Get love, get donuts. Bye.